Hey there, Groove Stars, Ridgely here with another Lessons from the CEO, and I am delighted to be joined by my great friend, Kristine Schwartz, who is the CEO and founder of reinventyourhustle.com, as well as refinedritual.com, and you'll learn more about that as we go along. First of all, Kristine, thanks so much for joining me. Really appreciate
Oh,
it.
thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today.
Let's do this thing. So I happen to know a little bit of the story, the backstory, but the rest of the world that's checking this out may not. So were you always an entrepreneur, or did you go some other route and then make the switch? Tell us a little bit about the journey, if you will.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I will say I am a corporate dropout. So I'll give you a little bit of my story. And it's very interesting because we are recording in the beginning of March, and 5 years ago on International Women's Day, which is this week, 5 years to this week, I was laid off from my corporate position on International Women's Day, mind you.
Oh, well, that's rude. Very rude.
Yeah. Yeah. But what I always say is my rejection was my redirection. And I didn't know it at the time. What my previous life and really was all about is I worked for a $1 billion retailer and kind of worked my way up the ranks. Every time that they didn't have space to promote me, I would take a different position, or I worked, for example, for their parent company. Everything from being an assistant to our designers, to doing their product lifecycle calendars, to sourcing, all the way through to project management, strategic planning, into marketing and loyalty and credit. So I wore many hats inside this organization, and what I found was, as a woman, it took a lot to get to that next level. So I ended up going back to school during this journey. I went and got a double master's, my MBA, my MAM, focusing on change leadership and project management. And at the time, it was so very applicable. I could apply right in the moment. And of course, when I graduated, I was like, where's the raise at? Right. And retail at the time, this was, I want to say 2016. Actually, that's when people stopped going to the malls. I mean, Amazon was taking over, and there wasn't space to grow. So I took another position with their parent company and was doing strategic planning. And of course, from there, I wanted to grow again, and they didn't have space to move up. So I went back to the original company I was working for, worked in marketing, did a full rebrand. And in 2019, I was laid off, and I'm telling you, it felt like the worst day of my life. I put my heart and soul, my identity into this company, and I lived it, I breathed it. I had relationships at the highest levels of the company, and I was like, what just happened to me? Like, what just happened? And probably about a month prior, I had been approached by a previous boss of mine and asked, do you want to consult for Urban Outfitters? And I said, well, as long as it's not a conflict of interest, that would be amazing. Needless to say, that deal fell through. But as soon as this happened, within a week, I launched my LLC and I launched Reinvent Your Hustle. And I said to myself, if I can help these bigwigs at the highest level, if I can help them save millions of dollars, then I can work with small business owners. I can help them with their marketing. I can help them become more aligned, figure out what they want to do, and truly take the tools, strategies, and tactics that I had learned and be able to apply those in the real world. And that's what I did. And so what I will say is it's been a journey, as most entrepreneurs experience. There's these, when you're at the beginning, there's this imposter syndrome that you go through. And really, when you go through a traumatic experience like that, you're really trying to figure out this new identity of who you want to be. What do you want to create? What is it going to look like? And so allowing yourself to feel the feelings, the big feelings, and take those steps, knowing that you're being divinely guided, that you will get there, but it's going to require you to be open. And it's not always going to look like what you think it's going to look like in the beginning. So that's a little bit of the beginning portion of my journey and where I came from. And I'm telling you, if you take anything from this conversation today, your rejection is your redirection. And even though it can feel really heavy in the moment, knowing that you're meant for and called for bigger things.
Yeah, for sure. And I love that. I am a corporate dropout. I just love that. That's just fantastic. And I think that a lot of times that awakening moment stirs something inside. I mean, you put your identity and your life into this one thing, and suddenly, almost unannounced, they say, "So sorry, we don't need you anymore." You're like, "What? Hello?" What was that feeling like for you? I mean, was it feel like that you were betrayed, or how did it work? How'd that work?
Absolutely. I thought to myself, I had worked with a lot of these executives as their assistant for a while. And at one point, we moved our design office to New York. And so all of the designers that were based in my home location in the home office had to be laid off. And so I had helped my executives execute this strategy before. And then when something like that happens to you, you're sitting there like, what did I do wrong? What did I do to cause this? Not realizing in the moment that it's actually not really about you. This, like, it's just business. Take the person out of the equation. It really comes down to money, but and of course, finding the right position for whatever's opening up. For me, I felt betrayed. I felt like, I had all these gifts and I worked my butt off to get where I was, and did they not see my value? And
Yeah.
so one of my goals, of course, after I had graduated and got my master's, was I wanted to be a project manager at the company, and I knew that there were specific projects I wanted to work on. And I knew that they had hired consultants, et cetera. I've been in the company a while. And so when I started my business, about 4 months later, maybe 5 months later, I got a call from HR and they asked me to come back to the company, and they had a project manager position. And I'm sitting there like, why couldn't have this happened years ago when that's what I really wanted? Of course, I didn't realize at the time it was a test. Are you going to continue with this business, with this beautiful thing that you've created, the impact that you can create inside of this business, or are you going to go back to the life that you previously had? And the deciding factor after talking with my husband was really, I said, I put so much time and effort into this and I need to give it its best shot. And I thought to myself, man, if they could let me go after everything that I did, after everything that I've built, after all the value and the time and the effort that I put in, how am I going to be sure that they won't let me go again? And the only way to secure my fate, if I was going to bet on anyone, I was going to bet on myself. And so
Mhm.
I just said, hey, I can come back and work for you as a consultant, because I knew that they had consultants. Well, the universe had different plans for me, and they said, sorry, we're not taking on additional consultants right now. And that was the best thing that ever happened too, right? Because I was able to continue to explore this journey of entrepreneurship and really take my business to a whole new level.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that that's a fantastic backdrop for having the chutzpah, if you will, and the stick-to-itiveness and the determination to build your own thing. Me, I've been a psychologically unemployable serial entrepreneur for most of my life, as in all of it. And it never made sense to work for someone else, but I can totally see if somebody had rejected me in that fashion, the concept of, oh, don't take it personally, that's just stupid. Of course, business is personal. We spend a third of our life in our career or whatever. What do you mean I'm not going to take it personally? That's the dumbest idea I've ever heard in life. Now, from a corporate position, if they've got to cut costs and da da da, they're trying not to take it personally. But the people that get laid off, it's personal. It's really
Absolutely.
personal. And I'm like, nah, not doing that. So congratulations to you for going after your dream. And now the contributions that you're making to the rest of us is just fantastic. And along the way, tell me, what do you think are a couple of the most essential characteristics of a successful entrepreneur?
Ooh, that's a really great question. Well, as I mentioned before, I truly feel that we as entrepreneurs are visionaries. And so we have this great vision of what we want to create. And sometimes we get set in our ways. Sometimes we say, we want to do it this way. This is what it's going to look like. And one of the traits that I say is so important is that we have to be willing to be open to the opportunities as they come our way and not be so rigid to pass those opportunities by. Now, let's say you're creating a program or you're launching something new. Be open to what it could potentially look like, or a collaboration, or if you were to switch your messaging just a little bit, be open to other people's recommendations. Now, what I will also say is sometimes you get thrown something that out of thin air that you never expected to happen. And so being flexible and not being so rigid and set in your ways. Sometimes things are meant to change and ebb and flow and pivot. And so as entrepreneurs, we have to be open to change and not be so rigid in our visions that it has to go our way, because sometimes there's better things that are meant for us.
Yeah,
So that's
for
one.
sure. Okay, that's one. Lack of rigidity, be flexible. Okay, that's uno.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, as I think about some of the best entrepreneurs I know, they're able to take a really complex topic and they're able to break it down in a really and articulate it in a really simplistic way. Now, as humans, we all love stories, right? We learn, we connect, we resonate with people through stories. And what I will say is some of the best entrepreneurs that I know are able to break a very complex topic down into something very simple and easy to understand. Now, that is applicable whether you have a team that needs to understand your vision or they need to understand your strategy. It definitely plays a role when it comes to your customer, because you need to break these things down into a simple, understandable, articulated message so that they can see themselves inside of the problem that you're addressing. And then also when we're looking at leveraging story as a contributing factor to explain these concepts, that also provides a resonance with your customer. So they look at something like that. I have spoken on many stages, and some of the most memorable speeches that I've given, people have told me that they remember the story. They don't always remember what the topic was about. And so as an entrepreneur, being able to take these complex topics, break them down, and actually bring story into your explanation really is not only going to help you as a leader, as well as your team understand your vision, and then breaking it down into the customer journey and your customer being able to understand exactly the problem that you solve and the transformation that your product, your service creates.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree with that. And so important to be adept at telling your story
Mm-hmm.
and making sure that it's captivating in some way. I know when I take the stage nowadays, and having been a professional speaker for 25 years, I always rehearse that opening line about 100 times so that it easily comes out as naturally as possible, despite the fact that there's 500 people staring at you wondering if you're going to be any good. Right? Those are the moments. Yes, my great grandfather was a dude named Theodore Hamilton Lastly, who started a couple of little bottling operations for a shop named Coca-Cola. You ever heard of it?
Oh, absolutely.
As a result of which I grew up surrounded by enormous wealth, and it was terrible. And we go from there. It's cool. All right, cool. Yeah. But I got you. That's for sure. I love that, having that opening thing. One of the ones I read that was so good when I was in a creative writing class was, one day God forgot to take her pill, period. Great opening. Yeah.
And then you were born.
Yeah. So tell me about, along your entrepreneurial journey, tell us about some setback, colossal or not, that you had to go through and what you took away from it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and this particularly will resonate with anyone that's in a space that's looking to pivot. I, for about 2 years, maybe a little bit more, was running a course. And this course was foundational. It was helping entrepreneurs, specifically, I worked with women, helping them understand how to articulate their message, really the foundational practices of building a business in a box, right? And what I found was this consistent launch model was really stressing me out. I mean, launching every quarter just became exhausting. I found myself more in a state of anxiety than in a state of joy, and I was not enjoying my business. And I thought to myself, there's got to be an easier way. The breaking point really came down to I'm a big, when it comes to community, it means a lot to me to ensure that there is a fruitful community of entrepreneurs inside of a space. That's what community is all about. And I kept launching with these small groups, and it wasn't the type of community that I wanted to have. I had this big vision of what it was supposed to look like. And finally, I went to launch, and the groups kept getting smaller and smaller. And I said to myself, I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm either going to scrap the whole thing, or I have to find a new way of working. And my biggest lesson, I had listened to a podcast and I realized, oh my goodness, this is the format that I want to create. I listened to a podcast and I learned about masterminds, and that's when the Co-Creation Collective, my mastermind, was born, because I thought to myself, I need to create something like this, that I'm not launching constantly. I'm in a state of, my higher self, where I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I'm creating community. Everything feels like it's flowing. I have an evergreen model, and I don't have to stress about putting myself out on social and creating these massive strategic campaigns. And that's exactly what I did. And I'm telling you, it just alleviated so much stress. At the time I was going through this process, we were looking at having a child. And so I said to myself, if I'm going to move forward, and if I'm going to be a really great mother, then I cannot have this level of stress and anxiety when I'm pregnant. And so that was a big changing moment for me. I had to make sure that if I was going to do this, I was going to do it the right way, and I was setting myself up for success. And so that learning in itself, it took me, I think sometimes we think about these things and then they don't come into fruition for a year or two. But it took me a year to figure this out. And when I say a year, that's me feeling anxious. That's me feeling tightly wound. That's me constantly looking at my phone. I mean, it's just creating a negative environment, even in my home. And I just said to myself, no more. I'm done. I'm done. And I decided to make that change. And one of the best things I ever did. So
Yeah, it's interesting because it's not, I went through the same thing. So my partner and I, Hewitt, and we've been together since forever. We were among 30 people who were personally trained by Jeff Walker to be product launch managers. So did millions and millions of dollars in launches for other people, always super stressful, started doing them for ourselves and said, you know what? I don't like this model. Now, forget the fact that I do launches and I've done a ton of them. I don't like launches myself. So we're like, nope, we're not doing that anymore. It just is too much pressure, too many details all at the same time, as opposed to being able to take something and optimize and tweak and optimize and tweak and have it continue. It's just a very difficult way of doing things, although obviously it's successful. And a lot of people, do the thing that you were talking about is once a quarter, we're going to do a launch, twice a year, we're going to do a launch. That's the way we run our business. But the risk is pretty high. Something goes wrong. Your server can't handle the traffic, or the merchant account shuts down, or you get a fraud thing, and all of a sudden it's just a disaster. And we've all had them. We all know about those. I personally am completely with you. Much prefer having a stable, steady thing that we can improve upon and make our contribution in that way. So along this journey, how important has mentorship been for you? And tell us a little bit about what that's helped you with.
Yeah, I would say mentorship has been one of the number one drivers in my business, both from a personal standpoint, a professional standpoint, as well as, being a mentor to others, as a business and marketing coach, right? Like I also believe that you practice what you preach. I've invested thousands upon thousands of dollars in coaching for good reason, because if my motto was, if I am going to go out there and if I'm going to teach and be the best teacher that I could possibly be, then I'm going to continue to invest in myself so that I'm providing my people with the most relevant information that is going to support inspire to action as well as results for them and for their clients. Um, Ever since, I will say, probably about 6 months into my journey, I had invested in coaching mentors. Some have been amazing. Some have been life-changing. And of course, there are others that are so-so. But even in my corporate career, having mentorship was very, very important. And always having those people that you can rely on and go back to for both support, as well as just someone to hold space for you, right? Having somebody to be able to just listen, not necessarily give you feedback, but be that sounding board, has been instrumental in my growth. And actually, that's how we've met, right? We're a part of a mastermind together, and so continually investing in yourself is so very important along this journey. And even when it feels as though it's a stretch financially, you have to ask yourself, what is the cost of not taking this step? Because if you don't, what's next for you? And how are you going to invest in yourself outside of a financial investment? Um, and the other piece in that, when you connect to a mentor, they also most likely have additional resources for you outside of just education. They probably have people they can connect you to, and most likely they have an abundance of educational resources they can send you to if it's not their expertise. So having mentorship in your life is absolutely important as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, for sure. Corollary to that, what do you say to those people who are, kind of on the fence about personal development, professional development? What do you say to those guys, gals?
I would go back to my statement. What is the cost of not investing in yourself, right? So if you look at yourself a year from now and you are in the same position, you're doing the same thing, you have the same result, you have the same feelings, right? Your frustrations, wherever you're sitting, you haven't moved the needle. What's the cost? Are you going to be okay with that? I never want to live my life with regret. And so for those that are on the fence, when it comes to personal development and professional development, you have to ask yourself, if I am not going to invest in myself, then what am I going to do? And are you going to be okay with being stagnant? Most
Yeah,
people will say no.
for sure. I'm with you. It's so funny because if it weren't for our mastermind that we're in together, I never would have gotten into the AI thing. It would have kind of been just there, out there, for me. And I wasn't the fastest mover either. I was listening to some of the geniuses that are a part of our group, and took me probably two meetings before I said, "Oh, I really need to get into this." And now I run an AI mastermind that's doing super well because of saying, "Okay, I learned, I get it. Let me invest a little more. Let me go a little deeper." And now it's one of the most fun things I do. To be in AI to me is it's like the most crazy. I had a conversation day before yesterday with a very, very smart person who said, "I actually think it's bigger than the internet." And I had to think about that for a second because I'm not sure it's bigger than the internet, but the change is much faster than the adoption of the internet. So ever
Mhm.
since ChatGPT came out and large language models and what have you, the speed at which things are happening is crazy. And
Tremendous.
yeah, I just love it. I have more fun doing AI stuff. In the mastermind, I just tell everybody we had 55 people, 54 people show up yesterday. And I'm like, bring it. What do you got? What? You think I can't do that with AI? You think I can't? Come on, bring it. What you got? Come on, come on. I don't care what your business is. Doesn't matter. Give it to me. Let's see. We have a lot of fun. What do you think about AI?
Oh, I love it. Are you kidding me? I I absolutely jumped on that bandwagon real quick. And here's why. I looked at the opportunity, not only from a content creation perspective, from a product perspective, how you can actually relay that information to your clients and what they can do with it, and then the impact it can create. Um, I personally think that the tools are getting smarter day by day, and obviously it's expanding at a rapid rate. And so those that may say, and I see it all the time on social media, people are like, well, I'm not getting the results that I want, or I'll throw something into ChatGPT. Well, I might ask you, when you were first riding a bike and you didn't have anyone telling you how to ride that bike, you probably fell off that bike 15 times, right? But once you got a roadmap, once you were provided with instruction on how to ride that bike, you were able to get on it, and only took you a couple of times, and all of a sudden you took your training wheels off. Right? So it's the same type of concept. Those that are the AI haters, I'm telling you, it's one of those things you can jump off the bandwagon. That's fine, but it's going to come back around to you. And so all you really need is a little bit of an instruction manual. You need a little bit of training, because whatever you put into it, you're going to get out of it. And so it's really, really important, just like if you were to set a goal, having a really solid intention behind what you're creating is so very important to the outcome. The same thing goes for AI, right? Having a very solid intention as you're writing a prompt, as you're inputting into the system, or even if it's a prompt for a prompt, having that intention behind it, knowing exactly what you want that outcome to look like, and getting very, very articulate and specific, it's going to provide you with an amazing result. And so it's just like riding a bike. You have to practice, and it will get easier for those of you that are thinking about jumping on.
And I say to everybody, find that coach, find that mentor, join that mastermind, be a part of a group. You don't have to figure this out yourself. Why
Exactly.
would you do that? Like just you said, it's like banging your head against the wall over and over. Or let me just go get the roadmap or the manual, as you suggested, and do that. Way, way easier. All right. So here's my favorite question. Assume that we have this time warp right here. Click, 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 click.
Mm.
And you could go back 20, 25 years and speak to a younger Kristine with all the knowledge and wisdom and experience that you have today. What would you want to say to her? What would you want to share with her? And oh, by the way, the answer, oh, everything's perfect. It worked out just like it was supposed to. That one doesn't count.
Noted. Noted. I would say to her, you already have the power within you. Although you feel like you may need outside validation, you have all the answers inside of you. And do not allow yourself to compare yourself to someone who's further along in their journey. You have everything that you need right now. And I think the validation piece is so very important. Like, you don't necessarily need validation to move forward. You have everything that you already need right here.
Nice. I'm taking notes here. I love that. Yeah, that's a tough one. How do you encourage people to believe that?
Mm. So I know you mentioned this at the beginning. So I launched a company called Refined Ritual back in June of 2023. And that really came from the beginning of this entrepreneurial journey for me. I was in that state of transition, and I thought something was wrong with me, right? So I'm seeking outside validation constantly, whether it was from an angel healer or looking to mentorship. Um, and what I found was everyone was asking for these tools. And so I thought to myself, okay, after doing this for the last 5 years, why not build something for these people? And what it really comes down to is increased self-awareness, right? People can call it intuition, you can call it self-awareness, you can call it your higher self, but really what it comes down to is having the confidence to trust yourself. And that comes with practice, just like riding a bike, just like anything that we're learning. You can't be an expert in it right off the bat. Some people are more clairvoyant or intuitive than others. But the reality is that if we do not trust ourselves, if we do not find that power within ourselves, and we're always seeking outside validation, we're never going to feel truly fulfilled. And so as you're looking to become more confident, as you're looking to establish your sense of self, you need to look within versus looking for to the outside. And that's what meditation, ritual, whatever your meditation practice might be. Maybe it's yoga or walking outside in nature, or maybe it's, just having time to sit by the fire with your cup of coffee, whatever it might be. It's having that time and space to reflect and to be able to look inward at what do you truly want, right? What's coming up for you, and building that self-awareness and being able to then act on the things that come to you versus leveraging others to provide you with the insight that you need.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. Yeah, developing that self-awareness, whatever that thing is, please do it. It matters. All right. So, final question. If you had to recommend three things, three books, three podcasts, whatever, to the budding entrepreneur who's looking to further their success, what three resources would you offer them?
Ooh, that's a really good one. Right now, I'm reading Light is the New Black by Rebecca Campbell. It's an older book, but it's really good. And that talking about self-awareness, now that'll help you on that journey. Um, the budding entrepreneur, I'm going to go back to Russell Brunson's book, Traffic Secrets. At the beginning of my journey, it really opened my eyes to, what was possible, especially for those that are looking to put themselves out there, collaborate with other people, leveraging, the Dream 100. That's an excellent tool. And then let me think on this third one. I want to be really smart as I recommend this one.
I love it.
Well, it's hard when you have to pick three, right? Um, hmm. I will say I'm an offer coach, right? So when Alex Hormozy came out with his book, $1 Million Offers, make an offer so stupid, or make an offer so good people feel stupid for saying no. I got that book right away. I read that book from front to back, and I'm telling you, there's some eye-opening stuff in there if you're willing to take a moment and actually read that book. It's very simple, actually, and the pages are large and the writing's very large. So even for those that, don't like to read, get the audiobook, because I do feel, when it comes to offers and what you're creating, especially as a budding entrepreneur, a lot of people struggle in that niche and how am I going to articulate it and what should I create and what should it look like? And what's so very, very important is that you're creating an offer that everybody wants, right? All too often we think that, oh, we're in a blue ocean, right? Or we're going to jump in and everybody's going to want our thing. And that's not the case. And then we get upset because not everyone wants our thing. Well, it may just be a tweak of the message. It may be a tweak of the offer, the value proposition. It might be a tweak in the framework, the marketing of it. And so having those tools and resources in your back pocket and taking the steps to reassess rather than scrapping everything is very, very important, especially at the beginning of that journey for those budding entrepreneurs.
100%. I totally agree. So, what would be your final counsel, final words to those entrepreneurs that are out there listening to Kristine going, wow, she's amazing? What would you want to say to them?
I will say to them, as you're moving through your journey, if it's not lighting you up, take a pause. Take a pause and ask yourself, how can I enjoy this process more? Because you're creating a lifestyle. We build our businesses to support the life that we want to create. And so you have to make sure that whatever it is you're creating is lighting you up. And if it's not, there's power in the pause. So don't be afraid to take the pause, reflect, and ideate on what it is you truly want, because you can create whatever it is that's in at the end of the game, right? When we look at our vision, you're building a life that you want fulfilling and filled with joy. And so it's so very important to make sure that whatever you're doing lights you up, and to take a pause when you're questioning whether or not it's the right path.
There's power in the pause. Kristine Schwartz, CEO of Reinvent Your Hustle and Refined Ritual. Thank you so much for your wisdom and insights. We deeply appreciate it, and all the work that you're doing to make this world a better place. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thanks for having me.